when we were doing the scripting for this, we were talking a lot about, what is the perfect comp? And it would literally be if, let's say you had a home on 123 Main Street. Well, let's say you had all identical homes on 121, 122, 124, and 125 Main Street that all sold yesterday. And then you were purchasing the other property today. And they all were built in the same year, had the same layout structure, all those things. So when we talk about same specs, we're talking about similar bath, similar bed. Again, sold the day before. You're looking for properties that are sold very, very recently. They're in the same school district. That's extremely important. We'll get a little bit more into that here in a second. Built the same year, same construction. And obviously these are perfect specs, but not necessarily every property is going to be perfect. So that's, again, where the art comes into play.
Exactly. And so if we just want to talk through our own comparative analysis, so when we take on new deals or we have people bring projects our way, we have our own underwriting that we do. And a huge portion of that is doing the comparative analysis so that we can find an accurate ARV, after repair value. So the way that we actually do it, again, I'm going to keep hitting this home. It really is an art. There's a lot to it. But the way that we do it, you just mentioned school district grant, and we have two categories or two qualities of a project that are disqualifiers, is what we call them. If they're in two different school districts, so let's say a rehabber brings a project our way and the project in question is in school district A, and we start looking at comps and the first comp that we see is in school district B, well, that's going to be disqualified because that plays such a major role in our analysis. And the second one is going to be days since last sold. This is really because the market changes so much, right? So if we're looking at a comp and the property sold 2 years ago, well, especially if you're considering what's going on in the market right now, the property value is going to be or could be significantly different.
Yeah. I mean, just talking generally about deals that we've done in the past, there's only been one instance where we've taken comps outside of 180 days, but most properties that have a good comp score for us are under 90 days. And something else worth noting is that the whole idea behind assigning, we basically weight all of these features and disqualifiers to assign a score. And that's really assigned by, or came into fruition because of Ray Dalio's book, Principles, because we wanted to take our thought process and put it down on a spreadsheet so that we couldn't fool ourselves into thinking something was a deal when it wasn't. And
which is surprisingly easy to do, by the way. The more you do this, especially when you're first starting out, somebody brings a deal your way, you aren't experienced there. You don't have 100 deals on the table waiting to be analyzed. You're kind of like, okay, well, this could be the one.
Well, and think about, we had been looking into starting an acquisition type of company where we were going to go out and buy real estate. And how many times did we go, oh, this property would be just perfect if it rented for an extra $100 and the utilities weren't as high as we thought it were. And we only waited or accrued 5% of CapEx for the property. You're just going to continue to whittle your way down until you convince yourself that this is an opportunity. Because after you look at so many deals, you start to fudge the numbers. But the way we have our systems and processes set up, that's just not possible. And that's why I'm so excited about comp scores and what our system puts out, because there's no getting around it. So,
and that's the science piece, right? Yeah. When I said it's kind of like weighing the balance between an art and a science, that's the science piece. So those are the two main disqualifiers. You have to make sure that the properties are in the same school district, or at least this is what we do. And we also have to make sure that the properties that we're comparing our project in question to have sold within the last 180 days. There are other qualities as well that we do some heavy weighting on. And the first one is square footage. So we want to make sure that the properties in question are roughly the same size as our project. We want to make sure they have the same number of bedrooms, same number of baths. There's similar construction type, so whether that's brick, wood, vinyl, etc. And then the acreage that the property actually sits on are similar as well. And again, we're not looking for them to be the exact same, but we're looking for them to be as close to the same as possible if we're trying to determine a true ARV.
Obviously, there's some other aspects to the home that are really important. I'm going to kind of go from top to bottom on the list. We have age is one of those that you'll see a lot of times, especially around here in the suburbia it was all farmland. So you'll see huge monster neighborhoods, and then you'll see a Cape Cod at the edge of that neighborhood that at one point that was probably the farmhouse to all of the properties behind it. So if you have a bunch of homes that were built in 2010s, and then you have a property that was built in 1912, well, they're probably not worth the same amount of money. So that's also important to take into consideration.
For sure. And that's one that I've actually overlooked in the past. It's easy to kind of overlook that one and not really consider it. But then you also have places in different areas that are like historical districts, et cetera. So very important to consider that.
Big time. The number of stories to the property, again, we're looking like for like. So if a home's a Cape Cod and the other one's a 2-story, depending on the area, sometimes we'll let that go. But if it's a brick ranch and a 2-story property, those aren't really the exact same thing. Having a basement, for some people that can be a deal breaker because they need a home office and the kids have to run around on the first floor. But again, like for like, we're looking for the same exact thing. And then garage space or off-street parking. Those are also important factors to take in consideration when valuing a property.